Let's talk about a feeling that I think we can all relate to, but that feels incredibly personal when it's happening to us. It's that feeling of being trapped by promises or expectations that we never even made for ourselves. I mean, have you ever really felt that weight, that sense of being tangled up in something, in obligations that you had no part in creating? It's a really heavy and honestly a pretty lonely feeling. For a lot of us, it starts with family, right? There's this unspoken pressure to follow a certain career path or uphold some tradition, to basically be someone you're not, all because it's what's expected. Or maybe you feel like you've been backed into a corner by a commitment someone else made for you, and now that promise is shaping your whole life, and there's just no easy way out. And that's when you start to feel like you're just playing a part. You're constantly torn between what everyone else wants for you and what you need to do to protect your own heart. That internal struggle, that's what we're going to dive into today. What's really fascinating is that this very modern feeling has this incredibly powerful, ancient echo. We're going to look at a story that's all about fear, grief, and ultimately faith, and it speaks directly to this exact struggle. See, way back in a really chaotic time in ancient Israel, during what's called the period of the Judges, there was a young woman who found herself right in the middle of a totally impossible situation, a situation she did not create. And her story has come down to us as the story of Jephthah's daughter. It is a heartbreaking, really complicated, but also deeply profound story about the awful cost of one single reckless promise. So here's the setup. Her father, Jephthah, is a military commander, and he is desperate to win a battle. So he makes this rash, impulsive vow to God. He says, hey, if I win, the very first thing that comes out of my house to greet me when I get back, I'll offer it up as a sacrifice. And the whole thing just unfolds with this awful, heartbreaking speed. First, he makes the vow, in the heat of the moment before battle. Then he wins. And what should be this moment of incredible triumph instantly turns into absolute horror. Because the first person to run out and greet him celebrating his victory is his only child, his daughter. His vow is binding, and just like that, her fate is sealed. And that right there, that's the absolute heart of it. Just think about that for a second. She had zero choice in this vow. She had no say in the promise that would end her life. She was, in the truest sense of the word, trapped. But, and this is what makes her story so unforgettable, her response is what's truly powerful. Faced with this unimaginable news, what does she do? She doesn't scream or run. She makes a simple, incredibly moving request. She asks for 2 months. 2 months to go into the mountains with her friends and just grieve the future she's about to lose. You see, this is the moment the story completely turns. It stops being just a story about tragedy and becomes this amazing lesson in faith. It shows us a young woman handling the absolute worst pressure imaginable with unbelievable grace. And this is where her ancient trial connects so directly with our modern lives. Her inescapable vow, well, that feels a lot like our unwanted obligations. The total loss of her future, that can feel just like the crushing expectations we face. A promise made by someone else? Yeah, that sounds a lot like the pressure we get from family and society. Her struggle really is our struggle, just in a different package. So what can we pull from her incredible response? Well, we see amazing courage when faced with pure terror. We see dignity when anyone else would feel despair. We see grace under a kind of pressure that most of us, thankfully, will never know. And underpinning all of it, we see that her faith was her ultimate source of strength. The deeper spiritual takeaway here is that these moments when we feel trapped and powerless can actually become opportunities. They can be the very things that bring us closer to God, reminding us that our real worth, our true value is never, ever defined by our circumstances. Okay, so how do we take this ancient story and actually use it today? It's all about finding strength for right now by focusing on the one thing that is always in our power, how we choose to respond. And that's really the bottom line, isn't it? We can't always control the commitments other people make for us. We can't control the expectations that try to box us in. But just like Jephthah's daughter, we can always control our response. We can choose dignity. We can choose courage. We can choose faith. So that really leaves us with a question to ask ourselves, personally. When you feel that pressure closing in, when you feel trapped by things outside your control, where do you go to find your strength? What's your anchor when the storm hits? Because in the end, her story just leaves us with this one incredibly powerful truth. Faith gives us strength precisely in those moments when life feels completely and utterly impossible. It doesn't magically make the problem go away, but it gives us the power to face it with grace.